Respectfully, Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free, back in America on home soil, would not have too much to complain about.
After Stephen A., Smith completely destroyed her for making racist remarks about Caitlin Clark, the Russian prison survivor, and believing she could use the race card to justify crowd noise. Stephen A. reminded her of some uncomfortable facts. Apparently, she forgot the brutal comeback, which caused Griner to go completely insane. What was more embarrassing for Griner was being called out for her racist remarks or having Stephen A. remind her about the Russian prison rescue. After making some extremely toned-down remarks on racial undertones and audience reactions during WNBA games, Brittney Griner recently underwent the greatest public humiliation of her career, and it was breathtaking to witness. Griner went completely crazy after Stephen A. Smith chose to give him a reality check, and the ensuing breakdown was so amazing that it merits its own highlight video.
Yeah, she says right there, watch this. Every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there watching on purpose. It's very disruptive. She says WNBA games used to be a chill, quiet place. You could bring your laptop and relax, maybe even get a little work done. But now it's like there's large gatherings of people watching us from the stands. Some of them are yelling crazy shit about what they're seeing, putting unfair pressure on us to score, like we're there for their entertainment. You are. The whole thing is toxic. I saw a guy with his daughter in the crowd, both of them yelling, couldn't hear what they were saying exactly, but it was either my performance or some light racism.
She says right there, every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands, and it turns out that thousands of people are just sitting there watching on purpose. It's very disruptive, she says. WNBA games used to be a calm, peaceful place where you could bring your laptop and relax, maybe even get a little work done. But now it's like there are large gatherings of people watching us from the stands. Some of them are yelling crazy about what they're seeing, putting unfair pressure on us to score, like we're there for their entertainment. The whole thing is toxic. I saw a guy and his daughter in the crowd, and both of them were shouting, but I couldn't hear what they were saying.
Respectfully, Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free, back in America on home soil, would not have too much to complain about. Especially something like this. Fans in every sport. She described the fans.
Yeah.
Let's start with the facts, because the order of events is essential to comprehending why Griner's reaction was so out of control. In a recent interview, Griner expressed dissatisfaction with the increased crowd noise and fan interaction brought to the WNBA by Caitlin Clark. She specifically mentioned witnessing a father and daughter cheering in the stands and assumed that their excitement was due to her performance or some light racism. Griner used the phrase light racism to describe fans getting excited about basketball games. For a moment, a professional athlete looked at spectators cheering during sporting events and instantly assumed racial motivations. That level of paranoia and victim mentality is precisely what Stephen A. Smith couldn't tolerate.
Clearly, she's not remembering who they let out to get her back.
The Merchant of Death.
The Merchant of Death. An arms dealer that wanted to kill American citizens, according to the reports. That's who they let out. For her.
Stephen A. didn't hold back when he learned of Griner's remarks. He reminded everyone that Griner had recently been literally freed from a Russian prison through a prisoner exchange that had freed Victor Bout, an arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death, who had been found guilty of plotting to kill Americans. Griner was brought home by the U.S. government trading a convicted terrorist, and her reaction to being free is to complain about crowd noise.
The price is insane. Let me read you the ticket prices. After Caitlin Clark's been hurt for 2 weeks. All right? So let's go through this. Caitlin Clark absence is having an immediate impact beyond the court. According to data shared by Yahoo Sports via TickPick, prices for 2 specific Indiana Fever away games against the Chicago Sky and the Washington Mystics.
Stephen A's comparison was completely devastating. Here is a person who has actually been oppressed, had her freedom restricted, had consequences for her actions, and is using that platform to complain about Americans getting excited during basketball games. The level of insensitivity and tone deafness was so obvious that even Gurrier's supporters were unable to defend her position. However, this is where Gurrier's reaction went completely awry. Rather than accepting the legitimate point Stephen A made or expressing gratitude for her predicament, she doubled down on the victim narrative and began attacking Stephen A directly, accusing him of not understanding her experience, dismissing his analysis as unintelligent, and essentially having a public outburst because someone dared to question her worldview. Gurrier's response is a wonderful example of irony. She complained that crowd noise interfered with her ability to play basketball, but she turned into the very thing she was complaining about, a disruptive force that diverts attention from the game, by making her own remarks and subsequent outburst more loud and distracting than any crowd ever could. Stephen A's analysis went beyond the prison rescue angle, though that was undoubtedly the most brutal part of his commentary. He also noted how Gurrier's complaints reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of what professional sports entertainment is supposed to be. Fans don't pay money to sit quietly and politely applaud. They pay to express their emotions, cheer for amazing plays, and create atmosphere. Gurrier's disconnection from the realities of professional sports is demonstrated by the fact that she found crowd enthusiasm disruptive. While players in other sports capitalize on crowd energy to improve their performances, Gurrier was viewing fan interaction as a hassle rather than a chance to demonstrate her skills on a larger platform. Gurrier's breakdown also demonstrated how unprepared some WNBA players were for public recognition. For 25 years, they lived in a bubble with no criticism, little expectations, and essentially no accountability. When Caitlin Clark arrived, there was intense scrutiny, genuine performance pressure, and consequences, and it was obvious that some players weren't prepared for that change. The racial component of Gurrier's initial remarks was especially troubling because it presumed the worst from basketball fans who were just passionate about the sport. The idea that father-daughter pairs cheering at games must be practicing racism demonstrates a mindset that actively seeks out issues rather than seizing opportunities. Stephen A did not let it to pass either. He emphasized the dangers of prominent figures carelessly making accusations of racism without providing any supporting information or context. This lessens the impact of addressing real racial issues and fosters division where none should be.